history of American food. And welcome, new listeners. I'm sorry you showed up in the midst of a research break, but getting featured in the history category on Apple Podcasts was, well, I guess that's the jolt I needed to get moving. So I'm here to tell you about Season 4. And the first thing you need to know is that it will cover the 19th century up to the start of the Civil War in 1861. That's right, we are entering the 19th century for real, on the civilian side. And unlike the last few seasons where I spent a lot of time looking at compilations of your manuscript cookbooks and working in vague cooking instructions, we have officially entered the age of American cookbooks. We also move out of the fireplace and start cooking on stoves. And the economic organization of the country that we recognize today, food grown over there and most people living over here, well, this is when the groundwork for that is really laid out. And that statehood spreadsheet is going to continue to come in handy. I'll cover the same central topics, iron, of course, and beef and wheat and fish and sugar and so on. But we get to start adding new items like ice, chili peppers, and jam. Railroads, canning, and industrial towns are all going to radically alter both the wealthy and the everyday American menu. And this is the time period where they all get their start. Oh, and because we get industrial ice and canning, we get botulism and the growth of food fraud. Things like the rise of hotels and their printed menus make my research much more satisfying, but also there's so much more to look at. And then there's a new stream of European immigrants leaving Europe as it's reshaped by multiple overlapping revolutions. And getting to America, and America getting to the world, alters the game board again as American shipping comes into its own. Oh yeah, the American trees still have a lot of influence on American food in fun and complicated ways, even as industrialization and cast iron gears move to the forefront. What I'm saying is there's all sorts of new stuff to cover, and I can start including many more recipes because they start to look like what we think of as recipes. I'm excited to start a new season once I get this new mountain of information wrangled into a form I can tackle for the next season. So I'll be back in a few weeks to tell you all about what iron is doing to American food in the first half of the 19th century. Now, if you can't wait for new content and don't have to keep your listening super for everyone, come on over and listen to my new podcast. Prizefighters, Circus Freaks, and Gangsters, which looks at the food, fashion, fighting, and fraud, and a few more Fs, of the 19th century by reviewing media from the 20th and the 21st century. I'm joined by another history junkie, Jamie Lewis, who you can find on Instagram as Plague of Strength, and comes at all of this with a very different slant on history than I have. It keeps things lively. As a detour, we're about to start covering the mini-series that looks at adventures in 17th century Japan, Shogun, partly because it's so stylish, but also because it gives us a chance to talk about what the 19th century was changing, what made it such a tumultuous century. And let's face it, this illustration of feudal Japan is gorgeous and blessedly clean illustration of the hierarchical world that was what the 19th century is busting up. And yeah, let's face it, I am just a sucker for gorgeous costumes and setting. So please stay tuned for the start of Season 4. And if you feel like it, join me over at Prizefighters, Circus Freaks, and Gangsters. Thanks for listening.